Well, hi everyone, and welcome to EdTech Talk, EdTech Weekly something. I have a question number 2. My name is Jennifer Madrill. I'm sitting here in Chicago, Illinois, and here it's Sunday night. I better throw this in here, April 13th, 2014.
This is Dave Cormier in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. Here it is still cold, and we still have snow.
This is John Schinker in Stowe, Ohio. Here it's beautiful, and it's been sunny and warm all weekend, and Jen tells me we're getting snow this week.
We will be getting snow.
And this is Jeff Lebo in Busan, Korea, where the weather inside is pretty much as always. I haven't even been outside yet today, so I can't tell you about the weather. But I can tell you that we've got a lot of questions and very little time to answer them, so we're going to get right to it.
Okay, I'm going to take advantage of editor's privilege here and change the order of the show because the first 10 minutes were kind of crazy and disorienting, and I'm concerned we might lose you. So we're going to play the second part first and then follow that up with the chaos. Here we go.
I don't know that I have any answers.
Great segue to Carla's
Perfect.
question, who is in the text chat and hopefully going to be joining us shortly. Carla posted in the Facebookosphere, I'm always interested in how we motivate educators to overcome their initial barriers to change. I've had some clues from this past decade working with very inspiring educators, but we can always learn from others and their own strategies. So that's what we're going to dig into. We've had some feedback in the Google Plus event. Alexander Hayes kind of chimed in with, why do we phrase the question like that? Don't we have to challenge them as to why, when they're faced with challenge, they take the road of least resistance? And kind of posted a little bit of a critique on how people just post top 10 lists or whatever, and people should be, teachers, part of the job is sort of embracing change. To which Dan Gallagher responded, don't we need to kind of cut educators some slack, and just as we do a needs analysis for students, shouldn't we be doing that for teachers as well? So that's our big question.
Let me talk first, and then Dave can talk. Because I only have like 30 seconds worth of stuff to say, and I know Dave has 15 minutes. Did you ever watch kids, like little kids, preschool kids playing school? I mean, you'll see them, and they'll line all of their stuffed animals up in rows, and they'll stand in the front with a piece of chalk and scribble, because they don't know how to write yet. They'll scribble on the board, and then they'll practice doing worksheets with kids, and that is their model of what school is. And I think when teachers, especially this group of teachers that we have now who are veteran teachers, they signed up to do that, right? They have this model in their head of, this is what school is. I tell them things and I teach them things, and they do worksheets and activities at their desks, and they sit in rows and they pass those in, and I put stickers on them, and that's how school is. And we're trying to change that, and that's not what they signed up to do. Okay, go Dave.
It's not, and I think that to your point, fundamentally, we don't agree on what school is. Because the whole education system was designed to be normative, right? So when Alexander responds, well, it's about change, well, actually, no, it's not. It's about instilling the laws of the past. It's about saying, this is what we mean when we use this word. This is what's generally understood by this concept. This is how you do a lit review. It's not that there isn't another way you could do a lit review. It's that there's a standard way of doing academic citation, and the reason why we do it that way is because, well, if we all do it the same way, it's easier for us to understand each other. And the vast majority of the education system is about that kind of standardization. So if you put somebody in a system like that for 25 years, and then all of a sudden you go, yeah, we're not so sure, maybe we'll do this a totally different way, that's one problem. Problem number 2 is, and I think the adoption of technology is the best example of this. Hi, Carla.
I was just going to say, it's my great pleasure to interrupt Dave. And if you could perhaps hold your second point for a moment, I'd like to introduce the questioner and educator extraordinaire who maybe got some answers for us, Carla. Hello, Carla.
Hi. How are you?
Oh, great. How are you?
Very good.
I didn't want to interrupt you, Dave.
Well, anyone that can get Dave's attention while he's rambling gets major credit. Good job, Carla.
Wow. It's going to be like that, is it?
Okay, go ahead with your second point, Dave.
The second point, and I think technology is the best example of how this works out. See, I can just keep going. It doesn't matter. It's like it's a button. You just is that so many people have been burned by really bad change, by bad change management, by badly structured projects. I mean, every time I talk to a new group of people, there's always those three people in the room who go, "Oh, I remember the last time we did this." You know, and it's the same with pedagogy. We've had all kinds of, because it's not really, the last 25 years of educational theory aren't really all that static. We did some stuff, and then we threw that stuff out, and we went a whole language, all the stuff that we've tried, but we don't commit to these kinds of things as a whole, right? We get little bits and projects and pieces, and people sometimes honestly invest their time, maybe 3, 4, 5 times over that 25-year career into trying something that's different. New superintendent comes in, that project goes away, and then they're just left sitting there going, I just spent 2 years of my life pouring into this, now it's gone. So I think that there are some really good reasons why people are resistant to change. One of them is that the system itself is normative, and the other one is that, you know, we don't do change management very well, generally, and I think often, and technology was really, really bad for this, but often overpromise on what that change is going to do and how bloody hard it's going to be. And I think that people have been burned with that, and I understand why there's certainly some resistance there for them.
All right, Carla, please give us some hope. What's the answer?
I don't have an answer. Well,
No.
That's what I asked you. Why I asked you. Well, I don't know. From my experience, I've been doing that. I don't know, training teachers and helping them, motivate themselves for the past decade, I would say. And well, there's always I think the first thing that they claim is the time issue. It's always an issue for them, and it's understandable, yeah.
Sure.
So, and also the fact that sometimes we want them to, to be self-driven and all that, and it's not like that for everybody. Here we are, and we are doing great things here, but this is just a very little minority compared to the number of teachers we have. In the school that I work for, we are 250 teachers. So it's hard to motivate them all. I try different approaches to different, ideas, but it's always hard. One thing that has really worked for me, and it was a big shift, was when I stopped trying to preach and lecture, like one training fits all. And I started to do little things that would really tap into, that teacher's, talents and, drives and all that. Mm-hmm. This made a difference. But in just some people, not everybody, of course, and I'm not I am very optimistic. I'm always positive that we can reach people. I never give up. But I really think that we should go, with the small things in the daily lives of these teachers, I have a good example of a teacher. She didn't want to have anything related to technology. She said, oh no, computers are not for me. But she was an artist, a very talented artist. And then I started talking to her and encouraging her to think of ways she could use art and technology together in her classroom. What happened with her, she got so motivated, because then I told her, maybe you should have a character for your classes, like she taught little kids. So then she created this character called Super Duper, and well, she started using this Super Duper in the classroom, and then she started digitalizing her character.
Oh, cool.
And from there, she got really into technology. Now she's presenting, and she's I encouraged her to self-publish a book with ideas for teachers, and the book itself, for the kids. So I think there is really no formula. We've been trying different approaches. Now we've been doing a more blended approach, like face-to-face training, because the teachers still need the model, the sample, how do I get started with this? And then, going from there to a more online approach, more self-directed. It's working, but I really don't have like the answer.
But I very much agree. I think the importance of personalized learning, and it also echoes what Benjamin mentioned in our Google post about addressing individual needs and expectations and creating an environment for purposeful change. And I think we too often say, okay, this is what we think everyone should learn, and everyone starts at such different places with different needs. And so I think as much of a individualized needs analysis we can do, I think that serves us well. And I think if you can figure out what that teacher needs, I mean, some people spend 2 weeks in my course just remembering their Gmail password. And I do think there's a role for kind of a flipped classroom style of buffet, where here are the options, what are you most interested in, and letting them kind of pursue a customized path.
We're trying to use the mantra of feed the hungry. Jennifer is making fun of my new role as a pseudo innovator in our school, and that's really what it comes down to with both the STEM program that we're trying to do and also technology integration, and trying to get people to use some of these resources and teach in different ways and affect their pedagogy. And it's always been, who's ready to do something new, and let's focus on those people. And that's not necessarily very fair to the staff or to the students, because some people are going to get missed, but we're trying to make progress with the people who are ready to do that, and come back and help the others when they're ready to move as well. So I don't know that we can reach everybody at the same time.
I was just going to tie in a couple of things. We've got Durf and the Lisa. I'm sorry.
Dr. Durf.
Dr. Durf. Dr. Lisa Durf. And she brought up some great articles, and I'll put those in the chat room as well. That Peg Ertmer has spent her career, she's at Purdue University, studying the idea, specifically tech integration, and how you get teachers to do that. So that's definitely not I'm going to leave it about there, about the extent of my my knowledge. But in terms of what we do on our side, like on the performance side, working with corporate clients, it's all about finding the problem you're going to solve or the opportunity you're going to help them with, and you've got to find that hook. And so that happens at an individual level, or if you're coming in to work on something larger scale. And until you find that hook, and then you get the person motivated to work on their own problem for their, to find a solution to their own problem, you're just going to be noise, and it's not going to be something. It's much easier path of least resistance is just to do nothing, because if you rock the boat, there's the risk that it's going to backfire on you, or as we were all saying, you're going to do all this work, and then a new administrator comes in, and then we're starting all over. But if it's at a, like you were saying, your example couldn't have been more perfect for what I was going to say. Is your hook was that you found a piece of technology that this person actually can use and will be helpful for them, and so you have a convert, and then that person will tell somebody else, and so on and so on. But yeah, I'm unfortunately saying I don't think you can't just broadcast, we now will be changing, and it will happen. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it's funny, over the last couple months, the thing that's really come to focus with me, I've had a chance to work with a really impressive, really really passionate group of educators in the last few months, talking about a lot of these issues. And hi, Arizo 14. But one of the things that's really come out for me is how important permission is. And I've got a group of educators who I'm starting to teach with. I'll be teaching in 2 days. I get my ED366 class starts in 2 days. So this is on the top of my brain right now. This is exactly where I'm at, right? But the thing that I keep realizing is that people don't believe that they're allowed to learn unless someone tells them to, or that what they have is correct unless someone has authorized it to. And this is a problem with assessment, right? Is that if we enter a learning environment with an assessment mindset, then we're working towards someone else's idea of us being able to do things properly. And as soon as we're doing that, very, very difficult for us to actually personalize the work that we're doing. So if it's about somebody else, it's hard for it to be about me. And I think that giving people permission to make mistakes, obviously, but also to choose and to decide that the work they're doing is good enough is a really important part of this transitional process. And I think part of that has to do with paper and the way that we used to have to handle knowledge, and part of it has to do with the way the education system is structured. We have put so much emphasis, so many of our questions this week have, and what about assessment in them? so much emphasis on assessment, particularly externalized assessment, that it's very difficult for people to understand that 97% of their lives go on quite fine without externalized assessment, and they manage to be able to learn how to do things and to be able to approach new ideas, whether it be cooking or figuring out how to break the ice off your back deck or whatever. And I think that tying into those life skills that people have acquired, particularly when we talk about adult learners, which we are when we're talking about teachers, they have this massive set of life skills that you can tie into. And I think for me, the permission is saying, you know what, all that stuff you know how to do with the rest of your life, let's bring that in here as much as you can. And that's okay. It's not only okay, it's better.
I wish Durf would come on. Although we have a 2-minute warning, people. 2-minute warning. But that's what Lisa was talking about with the differentiated professional development. You know, it just gets to that. Same thing really when you're teaching kids. You know, you can't just stand in the room and blab it out and assume that they're all going to just absorb it. You know, you have to find that hook. You have to find the thing that's going to be motivating to them. Like Dave, I doubt this summer I could have had a seminar for you on cutting ice off your deck, but darn it, the day you needed to know it, you know, it's like it's pretty important that day.
The answer is sledgehammer.
And I think you do have to overcome the affective filter to a certain extent. And I think sometimes when we focus on self-directed learning and just we're going to throw it out there and you need to, you know, find your own answers, I think it can be really disorienting and stressful. And I think there is a role for a little bit of hand-holding and helping people get beyond the I'm not good at computers and just giving them a taste of success. Just remembering their Gmail password, whatever it is, helps them open up to the possibilities. While I have the floor, and I know we're in wrap-up mode, I wanted to mention that EarthCast is happening. The Earth Bridges community, Sheila Adams has been keeping it going for years, and it's gaining some momentum. I'll put some links in the show notes here. You can also go to earthbridges.net. April 22nd, there's going to be webcasts happening in lots of different places. If you'd like to join in, we'd love to have you.
Well, I know we're finishing here. I just wanted to mention that two things that, you know, might wrap up this idea is like the hook that Jennifer was talking about and not being invasive, as Dave mentioned. So I think if we have those two elements, this could be really powerful, yeah? And of course, the lowering the affective filter. I think this would be a great sum of things here. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for the question and for joining us, Carla. And thanks to everyone who posted questions. Someone in the text chat mentioned Ben Wilkoff and what great stuff he's done with his roundtables and Google Docs, and I think Google Docs might help us sort some of this out. So we'll be working on distributing this information and would love to hear from people for we have a question next time. Hey!
Hi!
That's my mom.
Hi,
Hey, Mom.
Hi, Dave.
Boy, we have questions for Dave's mom.
That's a whole other half hour.
All right, ta-ta.
But wait, there's more. Here now, the chaotic opening to the show, where we rapidly introduce and address questions we'll be covering in upcoming shows.
Go.
Okay, I'll start. There's one question here from Paul Allison. What would a K-12 MOOC have in it? What connections would it nurture? Would teachers co-design it with students? Do they exist? We've been working on one for the last 4 or 5 months, trying to design this idea that would allow us to create a flipped MOOC, essentially is what my friend calls it, which is there'd be a centralized place where you'd have sort of a standard curriculum. We're working on physics, and then in each of the classrooms, you would have it run sort of using the MOOC as the textbook, but you'd be teaching locally. So what you'd end up having is 2 advantages. One, you'd be able to have teachers from all over the world working on the content, making it better, keeping it updated, coming up with new ideas, and then also you'd have the chance for connection amongst that as well. So that's one of the models that we've been talking about at least, but we'll throw that question out there into the community and see who else comes back with some of the ideas. Who's taking the next question?
Oh my gosh, this is so fast. What is the next question?
Pick one.
Is it? Let's do how about if we start the big one? Should we do the Carla one?
No,
So-
we each get to do short ones. We already agreed on this.
Oh, I don't have any
You
short.
do have one. You have a reference for it.
I'm stressed out
that's
already.
the innovation.
We're
That's
just
the
gonna,
innovation one.
right. We're just going to lay out a few questions that we received. Thank you to everyone who tweeted and posted questions. We're going to lay those out, and then we're going to focus in on one.
Okay.
Dave, yeah.
Okay, then someone else go, because I'm going to wait till the end.
Uh,
So
Sure.
Benjamin Stewart asked, how can instruction and assessment, not accreditation, live as one within an online course? So what do you think, Jen?
I have to admit, I really didn't understand the question. But I think what he was getting at is, when he says not accreditation, do you think he means in non-formal
I mean, I've
instruction?
struggled with this, at least in my dipping my toes into MOOCs and Rhizomatics and all that Davy stuff. Just the whole idea of trying to validate learning, and what does that mean in a course that's perhaps less structured than what we're used to. So, it's not about achieving content standards necessarily, and it's not even necessarily the same thing for every person. So, how do we have a course that makes sense for everyone and they get out of it what they put into it, or they set their own course goals, and yet you want to somehow at the end of that stamp that and say, okay, they've passed this class and so they can move on with their degree program, or you've learned enough grade 9 English and now you can move on to grade 10 English, or whatever. How do you do that?
Well, I think you have to almost pick what are you doing. Are you doing something that is formal education, that you're going to get a piece of paper that means something? But I think what he's talking about is more to your point that you were saying students set their own goals. And so that's probably the deal. Like whatever they want to get out of it when they come in is what you'd assess them, or probably they'd self-assess themselves. Like, did they get that out of it?
Well,
And
but
that's how
ideally, we're trying to use
Well,
these
John is.
kinds of models in traditional, not.
Sorry, you
what?
froze for a second. I was going to jump in. Please finish.
Oh, okay. I was just saying that ideally we want to use these kinds of models in traditional education. So we don't want to have, oh, well, if you're in school and you're working on a degree program or you're working in a high school, then you have to use all the old models. We want to do things like have a MOOC or have an open class, or we want to have an online class, and the students are doing different things, but we still at some point need to say, okay, they've passed, biology, or they've met the content standards, or assessment gets really murky there because you want to do some sort of summative piece that says they've learned all the things they were supposed to learn in this class, when supposed to learn in this class changes from kid to kid and from session to session.
Well, it's funny. We had another question similar to that from Jose Luis Serrano as well, who comes to us as a professor on la Universidad de Murcia. I don't know what that means. That's a cool place. It sounds like a cool place. Where he asked about how you assess and accredit rhizomatic tasks in higher education, and is the idea conflicting? I think that, to Jen's point, there's a lot of ways you can do that. As long as you have a clear idea of what it is you're trying to get done. If you're trying to put down a basic platform for learning, like here are all the words and what they mean, if you're trying to do the introduction business, it can be really, really hard to do that using that pedagogical approach. Whereas if you're trying to stretch people's minds and get them to new places, you can measure effort, you can measure connection. I think there's some other things you can do. I think the big thing that people forget, as the Rand Corporation has tried to take over our world, is that there are humans in those classrooms who can look at students and go, that person's not getting it. And I think that we need to leave more space for that inside of our classrooms, so that we say, did that student accomplish the things they needed to get to? Yes, the teacher says they did. And that doesn't have to be something that comes out of a test. That can be something that comes out of the professionalism of an educator. And I think that step gives you a lot of room to do a lot of different cool things.
I think if I could take just another bite at this. Go ahead, Jen. You can go first.
No, I was just thinking, more in a formal setting, what I do with graduate students is give them a ton of freedom in terms of the way they approach the assignment. So, for example, every class that I've ever taught so far has a lit review, kind of leading them toward what they're going to need to do when they start putting their dissertation together. And so, complete freedom in terms of what the topic area would be. But there's still certain things I'm going to assess them on. Did they synthesize appropriately versus summarizing? So there's certain things that make a good lit review from a bad one, but I'm not necessarily harping on what it is that they're delving into, what the subject matter and topic is.
We've talked about this in terms of teacher workshops and professional development, ongoing professional development, so not necessarily related specifically to a degree program, which gives us a little bit more flexibility. And in those contexts, we really have the conversations about what do we mean by learning, which this is a half-hour show, not a half-year show, so we'll skip that question for now. But basically what we were looking at is where is the reflection and application piece. So yeah, they're interacting with some content, and then what are they doing with that, and show evidence that you've done something worthwhile with it. And then, we say, yes, you've passed, or you've done the learning for what that's worth.
All right, let's kind of run through because we're going through these questions so quickly, and we're going to focus on one question primarily, and time is ticking. Which one have we not? Have we mentioned Clarissa's question? From Clarissa Becerra. She's asking about the best ways to approach or handle teenage smartphone use or addiction, the nervous thumb syndrome in classrooms. Very interesting question. And did we mention Paul's?
Yeah,
we talked about Paul's.
So those are questions that we'll address if we have time at the end and in future shows. We'd love to hear other people's thoughts. And Benjamin Press, or if the people who posted the questions would like to drill down and give us some more detail, that would be great.
There's a place where people can chime in on this stuff?
That's the question.
Are we just doing that on Twitter, or are we doing that in Plus?
Jeff has a question.
I suspect, I think what we had said, if we survive 2 shows, then we'll figure out what we're doing. My instinct would be post it in our different venues on our Google Plus community, which I encourage everyone to join, EdTech Talk community. We have a couple of Facebook pages. We'll post them there. Might even use the good old-fashioned website, edtechtalk.com, post something there. And wherever people tend to, whatever sticks, we'll use going forward.
Yeah, we'll track them down and find them. There's one more question I want to get out that is in here from Ben Wilkoff. What would an open global PD calendar look like? And I think that's a really great question too, because we do so much of this stuff. We do so much training, and the K-12 industry particularly spends so much money on, frankly, a fair chunk of charlatans who come in and give PD training, and then essentially just wander around saying random things to people. And I think most of the teachers realize that a lot of that stuff is random things. That's not to say that some of the PD people aren't great, but it's over and over and over and over again the same stuff. Why not a global open PD system, right? I think that's a really cool idea too. And who knows? Certainly EdTech Talk in its original incarnation was the genesis of some cool projects. Maybe this is one of those things that an ongoing conversation that we can keep building on week and see where it ends up further on down the road.
Actually, this might be a good. I'm going to pose a question to John, because you've been involved in the ed camps.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you sense things are different than maybe 5 years ago when those were a brand new kid on the block? Because that's very, ground up, teacher generated.
Right, and those are very valuable for the people who attend. But at the first Ed Camp Cleveland, which was hosted at my school, my superintendent was standing next to me after the first session, and oh yeah, that one, perfect. And he said, why don't we do all of our professional development like this? And I said, because they don't have to be here. This is a Saturday in the summer, and all of these people are here because they're passionate about making learning better in their classrooms, and that's why they're choosing to participate. And I would say the same thing about this group of people in this hangout, and the people who are asking us questions, and the people who have engaged in EdTech Talk and in Twitter and in all of our networks over the past 8 years now. The fact that they want to be here makes it a self-selecting crowd. And so when you go to Professional Development Day, it's in our district, the Friday before spring break starts, we're going to spend the morning talking about professional learning networks, or whatever it's going to be. And there were a couple times when I was in charge of doing technology professional development on that day, and tried to bring in some dynamic people who would get the teachers excited, but really they're looking at when can we go to lunch and when can we go home, and then we'll forget about all of this stuff over the next week and come back to business as usual a week from Monday. So I struggle with reaching all the teachers, and the idea that you're not just dealing with the ones who are driven to make things better in their classroom. You're also dealing with the ones who've been in the classroom for 28 years and they're treading water for 2 more years till they can get out, or the ones who have been in the classroom for 25 years and say, I'm doing everything fine. I'm a great teacher. I've been doing this for a long time now. I've got it down. Leave me alone and let me do my job. So I think it's difficult.
Don't we have an
right?
outro?
We're done, right?
We're done.
Where's the outro, Jen?
Yeah,
outro
outro.
That was it.
The
Ta-ta
outro
is it.
it's ta-ta for now. See you next week. Thank you,
Ciao.
Carla. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Jennifer.
Carla.
Bye.
Okay, that can be an output. We don't have to run away. We don't have to run away if we want to figure out what we're doing.
Okay, we can do a post show.
What?
Are we allowed to do a post show?
We're allowed, and then
Dave
everyone's
won't
allowed
let
to
us.
leave. You're allowed to leave
Right,
if you
you're
have
allowed to leave.
All right.